Hey, how's it going? This is Rich Lafferty, and today we're doing how to change your packing on a two-stroke silencer. Be sure to always use an exhaust plug when washing your bike. An exhaust plug comes in very handy because it keeps a lot of water and moisture out of your muffler packing, therefore it's going to have a longer life. So make sure you always use your exhaust plugs. Okay, some tools needed to repack your two-stroke silencer. Obviously, we're going to need an 8mm T-hand tool to remove the exhaust. Some bikes it's a 10, some bikes it's an 8. I have an awl here to remove the dirt and debris from the inside Allen head, 4mm Allen, on the actual exhaust, FMX exhaust. Get all the dirt out, make sure we can get the Allen head in there. This is the Allen key for it, a 4mm Allen. Might need some vice grips, pair of pliers, sometimes a long screwdriver, but if the old packing stays up in the core, you want to be able to pull it out. Plastic hammer, you need it as well. Paper towels, contact cleaner to clean all the carbon off of everything. Before you open up the new packing, we're using two-stroke FMF muffler packing here. Make sure you put on a pair of rubber gloves. There's a lot of plastic and some different kind of material, fiberglass material in the packing. It gets on your hands and your skin. And we're also going to need some masking tape to help hold the packing onto the core once we put it back up into the exhaust. Okay, we've removed the exhaust and now we're ready to replace our two-stroke packing. We've placed it in a vise. I'm using a towel around the vise jowl so I don't damage the exhaust. I'm trying to just go on snug with it. Just got to remove the 4mm Allens. Loose already. There's 3 of them around. Usually most exhausts have 3. Make sure that we clean the threads up on them bolts before they go back in. Okay. Now it's not really a big issue. It can only be one or the other, two different ways on an oval exhaust such as this, but most times when you're dealing with round cans, a lot of times there's an issue as far as just putting it back together, put it back together wrong. So make sure before you pull it all the way apart, mark the can and the core itself. Just put a mark on both of them so that you know you got to match those lines up when you put it back together. This way it's pretty obvious here, but sometimes I've seen people do that. So sometimes you can just hold it in the vise and pull it out. It's a little bit stiff. Rather than fight with it, I'm just going to hold it. Plastic hammer. Easy, really easy. Just so it's clear. Just pull it apart. Most of the stuff's staying up in, packing wise, which happens. So we're just pulling the whole core right on out. Okay. We want to make sure this is good and clean when we go back together. A lot of times just wire brush it. This one's not real bad. Just going to contact cleaner it. Make sure none of the holes are plugged and everything's clean. Packing's still left up in the exhaust, so we're going to put it back in the vise. In this case, we're just going to use some vice grips. Some vice grips up in there. Dirty on each end. A lot of times too, people have to be conscious if you're using two-stroke oil that doesn't burn very well or burning a little bit too much oil. I've always ran 50-to-1 forever, but a lot of times that'll have a direct effect on the life of your packing as well. So make sure you use a good quality oil, something like Bellray two-stroke oil, and make sure that you're not using too much of it. A lot of times it'll get saturated and it'll cause the bike to start to run crappy after a while. Okay, so now we're ready just to clean everything up and begin reassembly. Okay, so we have our material all spread out and packing, ready to go. What I kind of do is just open it up as easy as you can. It's not really easy to open up sometimes, but open it up. Take our core. Now understand, all I'm doing now is just kind of measuring it out. So I'm laying the core on there to see I'm going to get enough to cover the core itself, but not to be too long because I'm going to roll it up. So simply just going to okay, now we've got it measured out, cut. What we're going to do is just roll it up. So we're trying to keep it on the core as good as possible as we roll it up. Keeping it as tight as possible as you roll. Trying to keep the core open on the one end. Not easy to do this stuff, it's kind of stringy. Just take your time. Okay, she's pretty tight. So you gotta make sure that the other end's open pretty good. You don't want any loose stuff hanging in the way. Now I have always a little bit of masking tape. Now, not a lot, just enough to hold it in place. Because it's going to be tough to get it all down inside the actual can itself. You don't want any excess hanging over this lip, so make sure we push it all up under. Okay, now we're ready to reapply. So our magic marker mark. So we're going back together, right? Just be real conscious. Make sure up in the other end there's nothing in there, debris, anything like that. In this case, it's going into a spark arrestor on the other end. Simply just pushing it in as you little by little. You don't want to just ram in there and then it's all up on one end. It's bunched up. Bike will sound so much better when it's all done. Screwdriver. In the last little bit. Okay, we're just about ready to put the last little bit in, but before we do, this, this right here, I want this to be sealed pretty tight. So what I like to always do is just a little bit of silicone around the whole thing. Not a lot, just a little bit. Just a bead, and then what we're going to do is we're going to flatten that bead out with my rubber glove, just so it's an even coat all the way around. And this, just make sure it's sealed good and no issues. Plus it helps hold the bolts in place and prevents any kind of vibration, anything like that. Just a silicone, remove the glove. Now, when you're going in this last little bit, sometimes it can be a pain. You really got to make sure, kind of play with the other end, it's core, and try to just feel it to make sure it goes up into the spark arrestor in this case, or some cases it's just the end cap. Got lucky, we didn't have to really fuss with it much. So I'm lined up and I'm ready to go. Now I'm just going to reapply the bolts, and we'll be ready for reassembly.